Welcome back, guys, to the HPCult podcast. I'm here in Clarksville, Tennessee with Thomas West at his new shop, Renegade Performance and Racing, or Racing and Performance?
Renegade Racing.
Renegade Racing and Performance.
That's it.
Nice. Your shop's great. I mean, this looks really nice. I think this is like what the perfect shop would be for a car guy.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I had a vision and I just ran with it.
Oh, it's great. So tell me a little bit about how you got into cars, first of all.
All right. So I don't know. I just grew up doing this. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of true like gearheads and stuff of that nature. I mean, you're just born with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've always been fascinated with how things operate, and not just cars themselves, but just an engineering mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
VCRs, taking them apart, you know, old stuff back in the day, finding the dumpster. You know, I just started figuring things out, and I always loved to go fast. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember I grew up really poor. We lived in a trailer park, and we ripped the motors off of Power Wheels, and it was a big hill, so we could just free roll it down the hill. And, you know, plastic wheels going down a hill on blacktop, it's probably not the smartest thing to do. We'd almost kill ourselves. But, yeah, you know, it started there, and here I am now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one thing leads to another. And I think it takes that inquisitive mind to get better at stuff.
Right.
And I always say that, you know, the best engine builders, the best transmission builders, the best gear installers started off by breaking stuff and figuring out how it worked, because you don't want to break stuff, so you learn how not to.
You know, that's realistically 100% it. You know, as I said, we grew up really poor, so we couldn't afford things, so we had to figure out how to make junk work.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Yeah. What was your first like official car?
I had a 1990 Geo Prism.
Oh man, that's not even
four-door.
Cool.
No,
that takes away some cool points.
Yeah, it was a 4-door, and it was red, but it was a standard shift. And I got that when I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow. So you started off with a standard shift.
Yeah. Because
that's kind of carried through your whole life.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Nice. And as far as performance car, what would be your first performance car?
I had a 2000 Honda Civic S.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess you could, you know, some people might frown on that since I'm a big V8 guy now. But yeah, that was the first car that, outside of retarded things that I was doing, that was the first actual nice car that I had that I was actually proud of and doing really nice things to.
Did you have any mods done to the Honda engine?
Yes. Not necessarily to the internals. I hadn't gotten that far yet. But before it was over with, before I ended up selling it, it was turboed. It had nitrous on it.
Okay, nice.
Everything you could possibly imagine.
So not the typical import car.
No.
It had a lot of stuff done to it. Most people stop at the fart can and a air filter from AutoZone.
Yeah, it was turboed. It had I don't even remember the size of the turbo on it, but I mean, it made pretty good power.
Yeah.
Before it was over with.
I bet that car was a lot of fun too. Probably surprised a few people.
It was, you know, and those I kind of grew up during that Fast and Furious time, and that's what I was into. And even today, carrying on that tradition, I'm 39 years old now, and I still race two Hondas. I mean, but they don't have Honda motors,
right.
But I mean, that's kind of where I started, and that's kind of where I'm still at.
Yeah. So you sold that car. What was the car after that? Did you?
After that one, I had another Honda.
Okay.
And this one was. I started with it as a shell that I bought.
Okay.
All right. And it was hunter green. There's actually a bunch of pictures of it on my Facebook, but it was my most favorite car that I ever built. Well, hold on, back up a little bit. I built another car. I had a 4-door Honda Civic Pharaoh, right?
I don't even know what that is. I'm going to have to find a photo of that.
But anyways, I built it, and I mean, it was really nice. It was just a cruiser. It had some Mugen wheels on it. You know, I went all out, the whole JDM side of things. And it wasn't 2 weeks I'd finished the car, and I got T-boned in an intersection.
Oh, man.
So we had built, this is the first engine that I'd built. So I built a really high compression engine for it because I didn't want to turbo it or anything like that. 2 weeks after we got through finishing this thing, I just got it back from the paint shop. I got T-boned in an intersection.
Oh, man.
And thankfully, we had built this car in like 60 days. You know what I mean? From start to finish. And I had every receipt, like in a stack. So whenever this person hit me, there was a girl that was in college. She ran through the red light, deliberately ran the red light. She said she was on the phone, not paying attention.
Oh, man.
The insurance company allowed me to get the car back and gave me $12,000, but I had like $28,000 in receipts on this thing. So we took it home. The rear end was caved in. I mean, it wasn't repairable. So I got the hunter green Civic, right? Coupe car. It was a non-SI car, but I did a SI conversion on it, the clone. And then I took that engine out and I was putting in it, and I had a friend named Brandon Charleston. He's up in Nevada right now. I actually just texted him the other day. We're still really good friends. But he's into Teslas now.
Oh, man.
But anyways, he had a pretty awesome EG with a K-series in it with a blower on it. I mean, it was pretty nuts. But anyways, he convinced me to turbo this thing. And I'm like, bro, it's extremely high compression. He's like, oh, just spray it with meth. It'll be all right.
What compression was it?
Like 14 to 1.
Oh, really high?
Yeah, really high. So, and I mean, it was making steam then, but I learned some things with this. Because he was like, yeah, let's do it. So I had this car painted black. And I mean, we just went to town on building this thing. And we built it in his backyard in approximately 60 days, just like we did the 4-door Civic. So we just started slamming on this thing. We put it went on Honda. I mean, we did absolutely everything we could possibly think of. Put a turbo kit on it, LSD trans. We just kept building and building and building. And we finished this thing and we started tuning it. And my God, high compression mixed with boost. And it just made a lot of power, and the torque curve was up there too. This thing was unruly. We put methanol on it, and I drove it for about a year until the rods exited the block. You know what I mean?
And high compression is, I don't want to say it's super recent, but it's fairly recent to run high compression with boost.
Yeah.
Because back in the younger days of this performance world, running a turbo, people were automatically programmed to run 9-to-1 compression.
Yeah.
And if you had 10-to-1, you were high compression, but 14-to-1,
it was retarded.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we built the motor for an all-motor setup and for a different car, and he just kept saying, "Oh man, it'll be nasty." And at that time, and this was the early 2000s, we didn't know, like, is this even going to work? Because like you said, you're programmed to believe low compression is where you put boost at. So finally, I was just like, cool, let's do it. And we were spraying methanol, and we were making our own meth. We were taking washer fluid and a bottle of heat, mixing it up, and putting like in a little snow kit, but the crazy thing is it worked. That methanol little conversion was dropping intake temp so it wouldn't overheat the motor with the compression ratio.
And that was probably something like 40 to 50% methanol and then water mix.
And this thing, like I said again, it's one of the most powerful 4-cylinders I've ever drove in my life.
Did you ever dyno any of that stuff back then?
No, man.
It was just street stuff.
We were just tuning on the street.
Well,
I don't even know if I knew what a dyno was.
Well, dynos weren't on every corner like you find today. Now it's just, it's almost like a Dunkin' Donuts. There's a dyno next to every Dunkin' Donuts in the country, it feels
like. We would jump up in the middle of the night. One guy would be in the passenger seat with a laptop. I'd be driving the car, and we'd figure it out.
How much nicer would it have been if we had like just draggies back then?
Dude,
it would be so
I mean, the technology nowadays to back then, but sometimes I miss it though. You know what I mean? Because life was a lot simpler back then.
It was slower, but it was busy. It was just not as busy as it is today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's neat. And man, I had no idea about this stuff. I think I first met you at one of the like inaugural LS Fest that Holley put on. Because there used to be like the NMCA type races and LS One Tech series and all that stuff. And then it kind of all morphed into Holley basically taking it, and it's kind of the standard now. And I think I met you there, and you had a Civic with a LS swapping that. And that's my first memories of that. And I'm like, man, this is different. It's really different.
Well, and let me tell you kind of how that went. All right. So I recently found this out about you. All right. So once upon a time in my life, I got out of the military. I ended up getting some trouble when I went to prison. Right.
Yeah.
So I was a real bad fighter. I'm not some crazy dude. I would get my anger would get to me, and I would just fly off the handle. And one thing led to another. I ended up really hurting the guy, and I went to jail. So while I was in there, I ordered a book.
Oh, really?
All right, and it was orange, and it had a Chevelle on it, or something of that nature.
It was a first gen, if it's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and I read that book front to back. So the truth is I got a lot to owe to you, because when it came to doing LS swaps and all that stuff, it started with that book.
Man, that's pretty cool.
And I recently learned this. I happened to get a piece of paper that had your resume on it, and I was looking at it, and I said to myself, you've got to be shitting me. And then I got on Amazon and I started looking this up, and I'm looking up the book. And I still got the book somewhere. I can't find it, but
man, if you find it, I'll sign it on my next
trip.
But
look, I'm looking at this book, and I'm like, there's no fucking way. And I'm like, I actually know this guy. but literally that book right there is kind of where it started. And I cleaned myself up. I stayed in there. I made a bunch of life choices to change who I was as a person. And I knew that when I got out, like, all the drinking and everything else that kind of led up to all this, I was like, I'm moving away from that. Right. I want to start a family. I want to be productive. And I got out and I turned my life around. And from the get-go, a lot of people say, hey, well, what were you? I drove a bicycle for 8 months. I didn't have any money. I had to figure my life out again. Right. So I started doing that. And then, that's where the whole conception of, all right, when I start building cars again and everything else, everything revolved around LS's. Yeah. And that's, even today, other than my new car that we're building right now, everything I've had has had an LS in it. Right. And it has a lot to do with you.
That's pretty crazy. I had no idea of that. Like I said, I met you at one of those first LS, Holley LS Fest.
I never put two and two together.
Right. Well, I don't wear that book on my shoulder. And
you should put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, put it on a shirt. I'm that guy. Well, people have mentioned similar stories before where they're like, man, I didn't know. I bought that book 12 years ago. I use it every day for the torque specs. I went in Jonathan's shop and it was sitting on his toolbox, one of my engine books. And I don't push it or be like, hey, this is me. I did this crazy thing back then. And because I was just helping other people. Yeah. I took my knowledge and put it down on paper, and I don't want to say it's like a legacy, but it's almost a legacy. Yeah. It's kind of a neat thing to be a part of.
And I know this sounds crazy, but literally this shop sitting right here all started from that book.
Wow. That's crazy to think of. That's probably the best story I've heard.
Everything in my life that has happened up till now, it started with that book.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. So do you find any errors in that book?
Yeah, I haven't read the book in a long time. But I tell you, if anybody has read that book, at that moment in my life when I was locked up, I had nothing else to do. Right. All right. So that book was, I don't mean this in a blasphemy way, almost like a Bible to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I read that book, and then I read that book, and then I read that book, and I just kept going with it. And then I ordered another one. Yeah. So I've got a couple of your books. Yeah. So, and that's where it started at. And so that knowledge of, and then there was a point where, I would know torque specs from the book. And, I just had all these ideas. And while I was in there, I was like, all right, when I get out, this is what I'm going to do. Right. Yada, yada, yada. And here we are.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize is the books are fairly cheap. $25, I think. You could spend 6 hours online and find a lot of the wrong information if you don't know where to look. Because there's a lot of muddy water on the internet. And even back then there was. Now it's, a million times worse because you could find, how to build an LS on YouTube, right? Yeah. But is it just some hobbyist in his driveway just figuring stuff out on the way that's just making it work and it worked for him? Well, the book has the right way to do stuff. And it's one cost and it tells you everything from A to Z.
We run into a lot of that here. You'll have these guys that come in here and they want me to build them something. And I'm like, well, I was watching this dude on YouTube and he had this combination and it made this amount of power. And I'm like, well, first off, that's not how this works.
And I always explain it as in the professional transmission guys, the professional engine guys, they're building stuff. They don't have time to record what they're doing because for one, they may not even want to share their knowledge. Right. So you're getting guys that are kind of a compromise. Right. And I don't mean that as a blanket statement for everybody. I think if you do your due diligence and you seek it out, You can find the information out there, but you have to go through the brush and seek it out. Kind of like Indiana Jones trying to find his knowledge at the end. But yeah, those books, and I don't really come here to try to sell a book.
Yeah,
but those books are, they're a great resource. As you know.
Very, very great resource, good knowledge. And yeah, if you're interested in buying a book and learning more about LSs, this is the way to go.
Thanks. Well, most people just look at the photos. You actually read the book. You probably got more information out of it than the average reader too by studying that like a Bible. In one of my videos, I have 4 books. I had all 4 of them, and they were about that thick, which is almost humbling to me. That I'm like, man, this came out of my crazy head. That's a little bit dangerous for one. But it was just the sheer amount of pages was just kind of stunning to me because I never really looked at them all together.
Absolutely.
And it's different parts of my life. It takes almost a year to write each one. So it's kind of neat, the progression of how the first one was, where I really wasn't a writer, to the last one where I could write decently now is almost like 2 different people.
Well, and I think that's that orange one, that's one of the first ones, right?
That's a third one. The third one, if it's a swap book.
Well, there was one that I was reading, and it's probably one of your first. It's probably the second one that I bought. And it was almost like we were having a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So from a writer standpoint, like you said, on the last one, you got good at it because you learned it.
Right.
But on the first generation of the books, like I'm reading it was almost like you were talking to me.
Yeah.
But that was a good thing.
That's very purposeful because, going to trade shows, going to races, I would get people that would come up to me and ask me questions, and I would be talking, to like as if I was talking to another technician. And you could just see it going over their head. So I had to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but I had to translate it into a way that they could understand it. And so I used a lot of analogies and use more common folk words just to make it understandable. And then I had to use that in the books because I have to think of who's reading this. I'm not writing this for another, technician that's already knows it. I'm writing this for the common people that, are hobbyists. And I had to put myself in their shoes of, in the garage at home, how to do this job, how to do that without the $500 torque wrench, use the, the $20 angle gauge from AutoZone.
Exactly.
And I think that helps out a lot of people in that. Well, that's pretty cool. That's a book, that conversation.
So I got out, after I read all these books by you. I've always been a mechanic my entire life. When I was in the military, I did industrial stuff. I was deployed a lot. So I worked outside the wire in the Navy. That means out in the battlefield, you know what I mean? But I did a lot of, I worked on refrigeration equipment, water distillery equipment, small engines, boats, stuff of that nature. So that's what my whole genre was about. And before that, like I said, we grew up poor. So I knew a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing. You know what I mean? So I got out of the military, and once I got out of jail, I decided I need to go to school. I had GI Bill and all that stuff. So I went to school and I learned, here goes something else that we can tell the general public. I went to school, and as a guy, let's just say if you knew nothing about hot rodding, you didn't have that engineering mind, is these tech schools a good place to go? Absolutely. They're going to teach you the general how an engine works. You need to know that, right? Yes. If you've been doing this and you understand the 4 strokes or the 2 strokes and stuff of that nature, that is the worst decision you could have. It was a waste of money. All right. And even some of the guys there were like, why are you here? Right. You know what I mean? If you're getting out of school, you're 18 years old or something of that nature, and you've just have this hot rod mind, engineering mind, go to a shop, ask them to intern, work for free. Sit there for a year. You're going to pay a school to go to school for a year when you can go to a shop and actually learn how to diagnose, install cams, everything else that you're going to need to know to start your career. That's what I should have did. Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
And it sounds crazy, but if you took that money you were going to pay for school and went and bought tools and even paid some of it to the guy mentoring you and just said, hey man, can I buy your lunch? That money's way better spent than some of the schools, especially, some people don't have the upbringing of, automotive and stuff. And I think a lot of the schools, you probably spend the first year at least just doing book work.
That's what I'm saying.
And it just stuff you already knew.
And a lot of it is you're just learning the components and how they operate with each other. But if you've been hot rodding and running go-karts and building lawnmowers and all this extra crap your entire life, you already know.
You're already a couple of steps ahead of the graduating people.
Yeah. So anyways, I did the school thing, and like I said, my field choice was trucks, refrigeration equipment and stuff of that nature. The racing side has always been a hobby,
right?
You know what I mean? So I never wanted to get the two confused. So I got out. I went to work for a company in Nashville called Alley Cassidy Truck Center, Western Star dealer. And then I kind of floated around to different places. I had some good opportunities. I kept working my way up the ladder for raises. And then push come to shove, one day I said, I can do this myself.
Right.
All right. So I went in business for myself, and it kind of just, and like I said, I've worked my way up the corporate ladder, all the way to, my last job, I was working for a company called Miss Grissom Salads. And they're out of Nashville, and company that's been around for 70 years, open in the 50s. They make pimento cheese and all kinds of stuff. But I was the fleet maintenance director. Yeah. You know what I mean? So worked my way up the corporate ladder. I had a service truck. I was in charge of about 150 vehicles. I traveled, all the connecting states around Tennessee. Right. And then I sent a lot of work out, you know what I mean? But my main job was to keep the reefers going and cold storage, you know what I mean? So I got really good at that. And then, I was put into a situation where my boss came to, I worked directly for the president. And he said, hey, we sold the business.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, all right. And he said, they're moving it to Georgia. And we're going to start letting people go, doing layoffs. And he said, you'll be one of the last people to go. All right. He said, all of us in the top will be the last person to go. We got to sell the trucks. We got to get rid of the plant. We got to do all these things. So he's like, I want you to know you need to start looking in your future and see what you're going to do. And his name was Keith McIntosh, very great guy. And that service truck that I drove said you can have it.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
You know what I mean? And I was like, cool. So that was kind of my parting gift. Yeah. And the opportunity for me to go out on my own. So I did. So as that kind of dwindled down, we got like a pay separation check, you know what I mean? And I decided to go in business for myself. And that started in 2020. And so we're 2025 now. So 5 years ago, I started my company, Renegade Truck Refrigeration and truck repair. So I started that. A year in, I hired a second guy. So now we got 2 trucks on the road, and we were doing pretty good. I enjoyed it, and once upon a time, go back, 10 years, I owned another shop, you know what I'm saying? It was a truck shop, and all that extra stuff. And at that point in my life, I hated the controversy around it. One of the things that I've learned is men can be worse than women. You know what I mean? Like,
it could be.
They need a tampon, you know what I mean? So it got pretty bad. Yeah, so men, they need tampons.
Yes.
All right. So with the whole Renegade idea behind Renegade Truck Refrigeration, I didn't necessarily want to start another shop because I didn't want to have to deal with that. There's tons of overhead involved in this. The way I was doing it before, I was leasing buildings and everything else. So it was tough. So this kind of happened. We got 2 service trucks on the road. And, I at that time, after reading your book, I got my feet on the ground. All right. Yeah, I had a couple different race cars. I had the Civic. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you already know the Civic. It's been through 100 different revolutions. Yeah. It just keeps changing.
So we'll talk about the Civic for a second. How did that crazy idea come about?
All right. So a friend of mine actually built the car. Okay. He came up with the idea behind it and he built it. And then it was, he was wanting to do something else or something of that nature. And I told him, I was like, bro, if you ever want to get rid of this car, let me know. Yeah. So he's like, come get it. So I got it. And then I just started doing retarded shit. I put it on nitrous and everything else. And finally I ended up grenading holes in it and everything. And then it just kind of like the car was such an icon. And I know that's stupid. It's a Honda Civic with a V8 in it. But it didn't matter where I went, who saw it from old to young. It didn't matter. Right. It
set a very unique name for itself in this world because it was kind of a mix of, Japanese car, American, hot rod V8. And, I think you could just about go anywhere where there's a LS series.
Exactly.
And people know it.
And everybody loved the car. And I was like, I started tearing it apart. And I just had this idea that let's redefine it. You know, let's make it better. And then over the course of 10 or 15 years, that whole loop of let's redefine it and make it better just kept it happening over and over and over again. And, you know, to where, and the thing is a lot of this is trial and error. It started out with a bunch of stock crap on the car from a Corvette, you know, and then it was like, well, how can I make it go fast? How can I make this a no-crap car? How can I do this? How can I make it travel better? And yada, yada, yada. And this was all trial and error stuff. So over the course of that 15 years, it was just tear it apart, put it back together, tear it apart, put it back together, and build something new. And now, I mean, there's no telling the monetary value that I have in the car. I could never sell the car.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we can go look at it. So,
we'll go check it out.
This rendition of it, there's a bunch of parts upstairs to put it back to a drag car. But, you know, I built the S2000, and to be honest with you, and you know, I'm building the Cadillac right now, and I've got other drift cars, and my wife's got a couple race cars, and I was kind of like, it's setting the Connex straight.
Yeah.
And it ran. There was nothing wrong with it, just setting the trailer. I never used it. So one day I was like, what am I going to do with this car? You know what I mean? And I put it up for sale, just say, you know, maybe somebody will buy it. I put it up for $100 grand. I probably got 300,000. Right. You know? And there's no telling how many man hours to figure this out. But and the parts that are on the car, like now, brushless pumps, you know, dark block. I mean, I could park the car out and make more than that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, everybody wanted the car because it's still an icon. Oh, let me buy it. And then it's, that ain't gonna happen. I got that kind of money. So one day I just had this idea, and I'm like, turn it into a drift. You know, and I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, the whole damn thing's a Corvette anyway, you know, realistically. So I started looking at like FDF kits for Corvettes and all this extra stuff. And then I started thinking about power steering because it didn't have it. And I was like, oh, well, we'll put Volvo power steering. So I just had all these ideas.
The electric Volvo power steering,
It's a full-blown drift car now. It's got over fenders in the front. It's extended in the front.
Oh, wow.
And it still has it all on there, but I turned CO2 off. I put it on a 10-pound gate spring. It has 0 timing in it. All right. So it can just live on a rev limiter. And even with that, I mean, it probably makes $750 now. Yeah. And dude, it just absolutely am.
That's crazy. That's pretty cool.
So I need to put last time we were at the drift track, I broke it still has the Tilton race clutch in it. And I broke the straps on it.
Oh yeah.
The straps came apart. So I need to get like a different style clutch to put in it, and she's ready to rock. But she shreds, baby.
That's unique because a lot of people don't take the drag and drift world usually doesn't mix. They have their people, and what's funny is I've been to drift events, and this isn't a dig on anybody, but all of the kids look like Adam LZ with like the mustache. Everybody, I'm like, hey, is that Adam? I'm like, they all look like it because he's their hero, right? So they all kind of dress like him and look like him and everything. And we were selling some merchandise, and it shows you how different the world is. Those guys are way more on a budget than the drag guys. We could go to a drag show, sell out of t-shirts. You go to the drift show, sell maybe 1 or 2 shirts because it's just a completely different crowd. It's a younger crowd.
Well, one of the things that I've learned about drifting is a lot of the things, even in like the high ups, like Formula FD and all that stuff. I mean, drifting doesn't make a lot of money.
No.
You know what I mean? Compared to drag racing. You go to drag racing events and we're there to compete.
Right.
The hardest thing about drifting is it doesn't matter how good you are, you're the one that's going to say who wins.
Yeah.
So this is a judged event by an individual.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you got favoritism things going on and all this extra stuff. So yeah, it's not it's not a sport where you're going to make a lot of money.
Right.
And a lot of the guys doing it, they understand that. So yeah, everybody's kind of on a budget.
I think the bigger guys do have their tire sponsors and, their, whoever they're, promoting or whoever signs on. But yeah, it doesn't, as far as like a manufacturer's concerned, when you sponsor a drift guy, you're giving money away.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's kind of unique though, is they do have huge crowds. Crowds show up to the
People
drift stuff.
love it.
Yeah. It's very entertaining.
You know what? Even the guys, I mean, and this is, I guess, with every sport you go into, all right, some of my closest friends I've met through drifting. I've got some guys that I'm actually super, super close with. Hell of a guys, bend over backwards to help you. And that's the same thing with drag racing too. But even in that crowd of drag racing, drifting, everything, you got some people that you just want to hit in the head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's as far as the friendships and everything, they all kind of intertwine with each other. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
And car people are generally kind of car people, no matter what industry they're in. You could be off-roader, you could be, you know, Baja racer, you could be a drifter, you could be a drag racer, you could be a road race guy. You're all still core car people.
Yeah.
And you still know the same parts, camshafts, tires, brakes.
Absolutely.
It all kind of transpires across. It's just what is your flavor, what gets you off, you know, kind of deal. That's pretty neat.
Jumping back, let me jump back to this before I lose what I'm talking about. So the whole thing with this, all right. So, you know, of course, the Civic, we got that thing going on and everything else. You know, I just started a year prior the Renegade truck, the whole Renegade brand. I've been called the Renegade ever since I was a kid. It's tattooed on my knuckles. This is just something that's kind of lived with me.
Yeah.
And we named the little truck company that. And we were at a drag race. I got the S2000. I bought it from a guy named, it got sold to one other guy, and he really didn't do anything with it. He had it for maybe a month. He bricked the ECM, but Mason Whitlow that worked at Holley, and he had built the S2000 from exactly where I got it at. So it had a stock LS3 in it, a little baby turbo, and he was having all kinds of problems with it, and he decided to get rid of it and sold it to a guy here local. And I saw it, and I was like, bro, if you ever want to get rid of that car, call me. And within 2 weeks, he called me, and he's like, the ECM's bricked. I can't figure it out. But Mason was having problems with it too. So I called Mason, and I was like, what was going on with this car? He's like, dude, I could never get it to go fast. Every time it went into boost, it would just lose fuel pressure. He said, I added another fuel pump underneath the car.
Oh, wow.
It had 3 fuel pumps on it. He's like, it won't make fuel pressure. So I was like, all right. So I made a deal with this guy, went and picked the car up, and it was completely stock other than the drivetrain. You know, it had the LS3 in it, had a turbo 400 in it and all that stuff. No cage, stock interior. You know, it was a death trap.
Yeah.
So I got it, and we started going through it. And me and a friend of mine, Michael Johnson, he was messing with the wiring on the car. And one of the things that he likes to do and I like to do is whenever you're running like dual fuel pumps, all right, when you're at the track, a lot of times you'll lose a fuel pump. All right. So we always spade clip our fuel pumps so that way you can jump into secondary if you need it so you can drive home. Well, he did that whenever we were messing with this thing, fixing all the things wrong with it. And he went to turn the car on and he left secondary pump hooked to primary. And the pump was running, the car wouldn't fire. All right. So he's like, hey, let's pull the fuel pump out of it. So it was a brand new Holley dual pump. They had wired the secondary pump backwards from the factory. I called Mason. I was like, you ain't going to believe this. And I sent him a picture of it. He was like, my God. So then we got the car done. We unbricked the ECM and all that stuff. And it was just a little street car.
Yeah.
And we took it to the track. It went like 960s. I mean, it was a little fun car.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of where we were at an event together. And this is before LS Fest. This was 4 years ago at LS Fest, maybe 5. Well, it was 2021 when this whole idea came about. And we still have some of the first shirts. But my wife was like, we're going to all these events. And she kept like watching. This was her idea.
Yeah.
So she's like, we should start selling shirts. And I was like, all right, well, I have some ideas for some shirts. So I made one and I just thought it was funny. And it was based off a race that we were at. And I kept having people, because that car only made like 630 horsepower. And dude, I was just gapping people. Some dude had a twin turbo Viper and we were on the interstate and like I just was door to door with him, and he said it makes 1,000 horsepower. And here I am in a 630 horsepower car. So that's all I kept hearing is dyno sheet, dyno sheet, dyno sheet. So I made a shirt, and it just said Renegade Racing on the front. It didn't have a logo, and on the back it said, "What's your dyno sheet track?" All right. And
I've seen that shirt.
Yeah. So that was the first shirt. And when we went to LS Fest, all right, that was going to be our trial, right? We didn't have a vendor booth. We didn't have any of that. So Bree and a friend of mine, Blake, got on my golf cart and they drove around LS Fest. They sold 150 shirts in less than 2 hours.
Wow.
All right. So and Bree was like, I told you this would be a good idea.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool. Well, she was adamant about it, and I really liked the idea too. So we bought a vendor trailer. So, and at this time, me and her, we weren't even married at this time. All right. So we didn't share a bank account or anything of that nature. And, you know, I had just started my business, you know, so I wasn't making tons of money. And, you know, of course she wasn't either, but we both had some money saved, and I found a trailer, and we still have the trailer today. It's a nice ATC trailer, and it's got a whole, you've seen it, the whole side folds down on it. It's a whole huge vendor trailer.
Yeah.
And I found it, and she's like, let's buy it. And I was like, I can't afford it. And she's like, here's half the money. So I drove all the way to Missouri, and the guy that I bought it from, we're actually still really good friends.
Oh, that's nice.
It's crazy that, you know, you get to having these conversations with people. And I mean, we were at a point where we were kind of still struggling. I traded him some guns, money. I mean, we did this whole big, huge deal on it. So yeah, I got the trailer, and I even traded him a trailer. I had another trailer. I traded him a trailer, some guns, money. We got the trailer, so we get back, and then we started coming up with ideas to make different shirts. And I had tons of them. And she had one idea. She's like, I want one shirt. And I was like, well, what is it? And she said, I just wanted to say titties and turbos on the back. That's our #1 selling shirt. All right. So
I've seen that shirt all over the place.
So I made that. Now it's in hoodies, tank top, shirts.
So the t-shirt company, that wasn't really what you set out to do. It was almost kind of accidental.
It was her idea, because, you know, when me and her started dating, she had never been around race cars.
Right.
All right. And so whenever we started going to racetrack, I mean, I think that's why, you know, she's literally the love of my life. And she's 10 years younger than me. So I'd never met anybody in my entire life that has a mind that works like mine. You know what I mean? So she's got the hustle in her. She sees things that are going on, and she wants to know how she can perfect it. You know what I mean? So she's always questioning the status quo.
Like a different set of eyes than what we would have in the same situation.
She's got the same mindset as me, and we just click so good. So she's going to these events, and she's like, we need to start selling shirts, because this racing crap's expensive. So that was her idea behind it.
Oh, yeah.
So, like I said, she made the titties and turbo shirt, and then we just started coming out with new ones. We got boosting booties, tits and time slips. I mean, you name it. We got tons of different shirts. We're actually coming out with a new one for bragging rights. And of course, you know, we'll get into that here in a minute, but we started our new parts development company. So we got a shirt coming out for it.
Nice.
So these things kind of just took off, and it all started with that. We got the vendor trailer, and then, you know, a friend of mine, of course, you've seen these videos, Kyle Loftus, 1320 video. He told me, you know, he's filmed my cars a bunch. He's like, Tom, you're so personable.
Oh, yeah.
People love you. You should start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple other people tell me that. Yeah. But it was really him telling me this that kind of hit home, because
that's your Stick Shift Racing YouTube.
Yeah. So, and of course, he's the king at it. That's where it all started in the hot rodders side of things. So I was like, all right. So we started doing that, and it was gaining some traction. I mean, I'm not no huge celebrity, but it's gaining traction. We got the Instagrams, the TikToks, you know, and we got like 500,000 followers now, you know?
Yeah.
So all this is gaining traction, and this is about 3 years ago, we moved into our new house that we live at right now. And I always wanted to build my own little shop, all right? Because I'd always have to outsource stuff when I'm building something, yada, yada, yada. So I told her, I was like, hey, I'd lived at one place, we got married, she had a place, we sold everything, we bought one house, so we had a little handful of money. So I built a shop in my backyard. And when I was building it, just a whole bunch of things just took place all at once. Like a friend of mine, he was getting ready to shut down his shop, and he had a dyno. He had equipment and this and that. And he's like, Tom, buy the dyno. I'm like, what do I need a dyno for? He's like, you'll be the only person in the world with an all-wheel drive dyno in their backyard. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, that'd be pretty cool to film at and all this extra stuff. So I just said, you know what? You only live once. Let's do this. And I just started doing that. And I'll touch base on this real quick. A lot of it had to do with, this sounds good and bad. I got diagnosed with cancer 5 years ago, and I beat it, you know, but I had this change of mindset, you know, with that. And I was like, you know, our life isn't promised to us, you know, and money doesn't grow on trees, but I can't take it with me. You know what I mean? And it really made sense to me. And I was doing crazy things. Like I always wanted a Lambo. So so I bought one at that time. You know, and the whole dyno thing and everything else, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. I had this yes man attitude, kind of like Jim Carrey. You know what I mean? So we did it, and I built this shop in my backyard, and it was kind of, I never meant. This was everything of this Renegade racing crap has just kind of, this hasn't been a targeted goal.
Right.
This is shit's just kind of happened. So we built this shop, we're filming out of it, and then people started coming over. Let me rent the dyno, work on my car, do this. Well, I'm operating another company that's steadily growing really fast. And, you know, we've got big contracts now. Tyson Foods, Cisco, all these big, huge brands out here that we're working for. And I don't have the time to dedicate it to working on Jim and John's car. You know what I mean? So I started hiring close friends of mine. And I was like, guys, let's figure this out. And up until we moved in here, we had 5 people working full time in my backyard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
It just
at a home garage.
Yeah, it's just a 2-bay garage.
Yeah.
So it exploded. We had tons of, I mean, I ended up having to buy a piece of property down the street from mine. We fenced it in and gravelled it as a drop yard just to store stuff. Because, I mean, it gained so much popularity that people were having us do everything from an engine swap to full, I mean, whatever you could think of. We were doing it. A friend of mine, Clarence, down the street, and it's his baby, and it's one of my most prized possessions, and he lets me drive it every once in a while. But our first full build for a customer, he brought me a mint 95 OBS.
Oh, that's so nice.
Completely stock, 305 in it, everything else. And he's like, LS swap it, 4-link it, coilovers, just build the baddest truck you've ever. And I mean, it is. It's got a built 408 in it, 4080, Holley everything, digital screens, everything's integrated. I mean, you hit the turn signal of the Holley dash flash. It's got big brake kit, 4-linked, QA1 everything. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. So he let me build that truck for him, and it's kind of like an icon for me. It's our first full custom build, and it was done in my backyard. You know what I mean? So we're doing all these things, and then about 6 months in, my wife's like, this has got to go. Like, I get that you're having fun, and you're building people's cars. She's like, it's making money. So you need to make a decision whether you're going to continue to do this, but it's got to get out of my backyard. So this piece of property came up for sale, and I talked to my wife about it, and I was like, let's do this. So we closed on this piece of property, and we started building on it. We did that about a year ago. We started building right away. Good friend of mine, Bill Mace, put this thing together for me, and like we sat down and designed the whole thing together. You know, this wasn't like every piece of it from the outside, the way the building looks, everything. Like this was the dream that I had in my head. So we put this thing together, and we moved in December, and since then it just skyrocketed. Like, and I told the guys, we had 5 people, like I told you, on staff. We moved in December, and I was like, hey, it might take us a good 2 or 3 months to really get busy, but we need to go ahead and start hiring some other people. So I'm probably going to lose, you know how any business is when you first start. We're probably going to lose. And I say first start because, I mean, we were working no rent, no nothing. We're moving into something where I got to pay a hefty mortgage and everything. We're probably going to lose, right? That's completely opposite. This thing exploded.
It has.
Like we couldn't even breathe. I mean, we got 12 techs on staff now.
Wow.
All right.
And
so
this is
just work here.
6 months in.
6 months in.
Wow.
And we're like on like big major builds, we're like 3 to 5 months out. All right. We got a couple going right now. We're doing a lot of high end stuff. Like we've got professional baseball players that come here. It's just, it's ricocheted in a direction that we never thought it'd go in. And then, you know, my friend Josh, our mutual friend, me and him has had an idea for a long time. And so we jumped on it. Like the whole direction that this is going. And one of the biggest things that, and I think this is a dream for every hot rodder, but when do we really get to make our dreams into a reality?
It's very rare.
It's very rare. You know what I mean? Everybody has real crazy dreams. But one of them for me is I always wanted to manufacture my own parts. How cool would it be
it is so cool.
to pop somebody's hood, or you're walking around a car show and you look down and you see your products on
see your logo on somebody's car.
Yeah, and I've admired people like that, like Matt Goins, Jonathan Atkins, Brian Tooley for that matter. You know, and I'm seeing these guys at racetracks, and I'm seeing them walk down the aisles, and they're looking at their product on a car, and I was like, dude, I always wanted to do that. And yesterday we released our first product.
I saw that.
And the thing is the idea that we got, and I tell people this all the time because everybody's like, how did you do it? How did I do anything? And I'm telling people, look, I'm not a Matt Goins. All right. Matt, he's
that's a good guy. Bro. He is next level, but I don't think he knows how smart he is.
He does.
I think maybe he does.
All right.
But it's crazy what stuff he has developed.
Dude, and I tell Tia, his wife, all the time, I'm like, I love your husband.
Yeah.
But he's a pioneer. You know what I mean? And I just can't say enough about him. And I'm looking at him, and that's someone that's just coming up with stuff out of a box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I had to edit. So I haven't released his podcast yet, but I was editing it yesterday, and he asked me to edit certain parts out because it's stuff that he's releasing in the future.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, can you delete that part? And so I had to take it back out. And I put, that kind of rainbow color, like that old TVs used to pop up, no signal. So I put that over that part where I had to censor it out.
He's doing these things. So getting back to me, I'm not a Matt Goins. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a pioneer. Maybe one day I could get there. All right. But my expertise is, fixing things, working on things. So whenever we started this, I was like, the whole point of Renegade is to question the status quo. All right. You're looking at something. How can you figure it out? How can you change it? How can you make it better? Well, that's kind of what we're doing. All right. So we're looking at products that are out there right now and solving the solutions of why they're not underperforming or not performing correctly. And one of the biggest things that I've had a problem with is I run, I'm not going to say their brand on my race car. All right. And it's a breather for a burn down tank, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see people with breathers, like you remember the old school Honda days, you drill some holes, weld in some bungs, put some lines on it. All right. And even nowadays, that's what we got going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even with like breathers and stuff that we can put on a car, quick release. The problem that I'm always having is I'm filling up the catch can. Full of oil.
You have to take your oil and dump it back into the crankcase.
But that's what's a catch can for?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I understand that I'm going to catch a little bit of oil in some particulars.
The catch can shouldn't regularly catch that much oil.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to drain this thing. Okay. So it's there to vent for atmosphere. So we had a conversation, and me and Josh, and I'm like, let's solve this problem. All right. So we got to come up with a baffling system. All right. That will let the breather breathe and not consume oil out of the engine. And that's exactly what we did. So like I said, we're not pioneers paving the way to new stuff out here. We're taking what's out here right now and figuring out how to make it better. And that's what I've done. A lot of people ask me all the time, how am I being able to do all the things I'm doing, from the truck repair to everything else? I haven't invented anything.
No,
I'm just seeing what other people are doing, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it better and do my own thing with it.
And having that drive to figure out stuff or take stuff apart, figure out how it works, and reassemble it, that makes you an innovator in a way, because you find the weak points, the failure points, and you improve on them. And like your blowdown tube baffle, it's just common sense. Like, it should have a baffle, right?
And some of the companies out there, they have a baffle, but it's not working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we had a conversation with and we started like actually testing things, in different ways. All right. And we figured out through trial and error how to make it work without like putting all these like big, huge metal screens in it and everything else to keep the oil inside the engine. And it was as simple as that. So it went from there to, all right, let's design the coolest catch can there is that's going to accompany these things. And we just keep going those directions. One of the other things that we've designed that's getting ready for manufacture right now is on my car, I've got a water pump delete. All right, it's a billet plate that goes across on an LS. And whenever I was building my piping for it, because everything's really close in this car, I've got no room. I had to bend in my intake piping because it's so bulky.
Right.
So let's make one that's not as bulky. So we did, and then I've heard from so many people, oh God, they're so bulky. And I'm like, well, cool. I made one that's slim and sleek design that works perfect. And oh man. And it's just simple things like that.
Right.
And that's kind of the direction we're headed with right now. Well, like I said, in the future, would I like to design something on our own? Sure. And maybe we'll get there. But like I said, this whole Renegade Racing thing, it started with my wife having an idea for a t-shirt.
It has cascaded rather quickly, very quickly. Yeah. Sometimes it probably feels like it's going to leave you behind if you don't kind of chase after it too.
Yeah, this is a lot of times we'll be standing in here and a lot of times we'll be standing in here and my wife will be at the front desk and like a customer will leave and I'll just look at her and I'll be like, can you believe this? Because a lot of it doesn't, even as of right now, doesn't seem like
doesn't feel real.
4 years ago, this was a t-shirt. And now, I mean, we're designing and building our own products. We have one of the largest speed shops in the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This makes no sense.
In a very short amount of time, you've gone from that idea where you're selling, you had to trade your guns and your trailer to get your merchandise trailer. And what I always tell people is if you have something that's a good idea and you have some kind of liquid asset that you could sell for success. So think about this. You're borrowing against an asset that you could buy in the future once you succeed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you take your car, your prized possession car, and you sell it to build a business, then you know it's going to work. Well, just buy the car in 2 years when you actually have stupid money to buy it back.
Exactly.
And you're just temporarily taking this little sacrifice and turning it into something much bigger than a car sitting in your garage.
Yeah. And right now we're building the Cadillac. So the idea behind the Cadillac is everybody knows I'm a stick shift racer and we constantly want to go faster. Everybody racing wants to go faster. Yeah. So there's limitations in the stick shift racings. We're in the sixes. I'd say the fastest right now is a 6:49, but no one's been close to that ever again. All right. Good friend of mine, Nick Coleman, did that. He hasn't even been that close. All right. And I mean, he sent his truck pretty hard and ended up chunking the rods out of the thing like a race later, but I mean, he's a consistent 6-second guy.
Right.
All right. I mean,
how fast has your S2000 gone?
Right now, just 750.
750s. Okay.
Yeah, but we've had multiple problems with it. And so everybody in the racing industry knows that whenever you're building a race car to go really fast, this is trial and error over and over and over again. All right. So for somebody to build a car and really work the kinks out, it takes a couple years. You know what I mean? You just don't build a car and go out there.
Well, also, regularly racing too. You don't go once every 6 months.
Yeah, and that's another problem for me is I don't have the opportunities to do that.
Right.
I'm doing this. So I go to some major events and I'm trying to get more into practicing on it, but we're going to get to that because this thing is retarded now. But anyways, so building the Cadillac, a lot of design has come into that, and thankfully throughout these last 4 years of the Renegade and me doing everything that I've been doing, I've got to meet and become friends with some of the biggest industry leaders in the world.
Oh yeah.
And Matt's one of them, right?
Yeah.
So and Jonathan, all right, everybody calls him my dad, you know what I mean?
Jonathan.
So
he's a good guy too.
We're going to build this car, and Jonathan's like, I was going to put an LS in it. Jonathan's like, nah. He said, if you want to go fast, if you want to break the record, let's put a small block in.
Yeah. Of course that would come from him. Yeah. Because he's trying to be different.
Oh, yeah. But this small block it's a CFE. It's cannon valve. It's absolutely retarded. All billet, everything.
Yeah. Was that the picture I sent you was for that engine? Of some sort of billet crankshaft?
Yeah. So we're doing this. And Jonathan started talking to Matt, and I started talking to Matt. He's like, hey, this ain't going to work. And he's like, well, what's not going to work? He's like, we're going to make 4,000 to 5,000 horsepower, and we're going to split these transmissions in half. So the whole idea behind 6XD and Matt is this transmission was developed, all right, the casing for this new car. And then Justin Brangers with BRE, and he is the focus point behind the clutch. So it's a custom 9-finger, all billet, triple disc. Right. It's something you'll never see before.
That's the guy that goes with Jonathan to the races.
Yes, absolutely. He made the bell housing for it. He redesigned it. It's a titanium bell housing for a Hemi.
Oh, wow.
All right. And then he made it where it fit a T56. It's got a slave in it. It's just retarded.
That billet stuff, the billet case and the oil cooler and all that stuff, just talking to Matt, it makes sense why it's all needed. And I thought it was crazy because a lot of people think with a race car or any kind of build that it's static. So like the oil pump pumps oil from the back, because if you have a 2G launch, which is easy to do, and a 60-foot, if not probably
starve the transmission.
Just starve the transmission because your fluid's in the back and your gears are, up front in the front housing. So it makes sense to just pump it and just dump it in the front.
All this innovative stuff he's coming up with. But going back to the point of the car where I'm building this monstrosity of a car, right? And God, I want it to be done because it's solid axle. This thing, the wheelbase on this car is a Pro Mod status. It's 113.7 inches. It's long. This car ain't it's longer than anybody out there right now. And I said, hey, we're going to stop right now. We're going to stop building it right now. And we're almost to a point where we can have it completed. And, I get so much, why aren't we getting the Cadillac done? Why aren't we getting the Cadillac done? And because racing's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like you were saying, you sell this prized item. Well, I'm not necessarily selling it, but I've got ideas and things that I want to do. And a lot of people would say, starting from a T-shirt to where we are now in 4 years, that's fast. I want to go faster. All right. So I can't allow these wants right here to control my life. So right now, that's why I said, hey, we're going to put, and this thing will probably break the 5-second barrier. It's capable of doing it. It's going to be extremely fast.
I look forward to seeing that when you get back, put that thing together.
But like right now, as cool as that would be, all right, there's so much more that we can do with that money that I need to focus on it because I want to go to the next level.
And you have so much resources during the given work week to where, more important is to take care of the business, take care of the customers, because that is the feed stream, right?
Right, absolutely.
And once that is more comfortable and you can release some responsibilities on other team members or hiring more people, then you start breaking up and you get more free time. You won't even know where it comes from. You'll be like, oh, I got an extra 5 minutes here. You get an extra 5 minutes. Then all of a sudden you have a free half a day somehow. Well, then what you could probably do is spend like a half a day on a Saturday working on your own project.
Absolutely.
And then you have the rest of the week for everybody else's stuff. And that'll come with time. That's pretty neat. That Cadillac, that's like a CTSV style body.
It's the Gen 2, so V2, and it's a coupe car.
Okay, but one nobody liked.
One nobody liked.
But I like them.
Yeah. Well, the idea behind it is I like them too. Yeah. And we got to keep weight down, so we got to keep this thing around 2,500 pounds or less, and that's really hard. One of the things I never knew this. And they fill the cars with like some kind of concrete material in the sides of it for sound deadening. I mean, we have cut thousands of pounds out of this.
I knew those cars were heavy.
Yeah, stupid heavy.
So you remember the Hennessy Toll Road CTSV? I did the engine in that.
No doubt.
That was the one. One of my last ones that I helped those guys coordinate with. So if I was building it today, it would have a little bit different engine setup. But they told me what they were doing and what they wanted, and I put together a package for them. It's not this typical Texas Speed stuff that you would get if you just called them today. It was actually went out across my plate, and I knew the guys that used to work there, so it was kind of nice. I would just make a phone call like, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to try to do a top speed run," and I think it went 220-ish miles an hour on the toll road in Texas. I mean, that's been like 12 years ago. And then it opened the next day to the public. So we got the use of it the day before it opened, and that was fun. We took a ZL1 and then the CTSV. Of course, the CTSV wasn't supercharged. It was twin turbo. And ZL1 was a supercharged, the LSA blower on top of a heads cam setup. And that went like 202 or 203 top speed, which is pretty crazy. You know, to do that on a public road that was closed. It was fun to be part of that kind of stuff. But yeah, the CTSV, I think it'll be unique, which is kind of the name of your game, though. Everything you've got is unique.
You know, I'm always building something retarded. But I mean, I had a 4-door V, and I really loved it. It made somewhere around 1,000. You know, kind of like it was a street car, had nitrous on it. You know, David hooked it up. Had a 2.3 blower on it from Magnuson.
Yeah.
I had a Haymaker heads on it. Them things would flow. Dude.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know did SPS go out of business?
He went to work for Frankenstein. I think he sold the company. He went to work for Frankenstein, and now he works for Whipple. Actually,
gotcha.
I think when you have a really small cylinder head company, it kind of puts you at a disadvantage. Because you probably have a lot of great ideas and you make really good stuff, but really the money is in, I'll wait for that.
No.
As you know, the money in anything has to be volume.
Yep.
So, you know, if you make a cylinder head that's $1,500 or $2,000 and you sell one a week, that doesn't keep you in business.
No.
You almost have to do a set a day just to kind of be your base minimum. And I think a lot of startup companies have that problem where they just don't have enough flow, even though they make amazing parts.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, those heads would, and I still got them. I heard them though. Matter of fact, LS Fest with the Civic.
Oh, man.
I took them off that Cadillac and I put them on the Civic. And it was a stock block 6-liter, full custom rotating assembly. And I had them heads on it. And twin turbo. It made literally, we were on the dyno with it. There's a video on this, 1,600 wheel. Wow. All right. Stock block 6-liter. I think we had a Molnar crank and rods in it, some diamond pistons.
Hey, that has to be the highest 6-liter dyno I've heard of.
Dude,
by probably like 200-300 horsepower.
It was ripping, bro. We ran out of fuel. That's the whole reason why we quit. We ran out of fuel, and but we went to LS Fest, and we're doing different events there. And I got the opportunity. We had the S2000 there, and Sparky was like, "Bro, let's get in the burnout contest." And of course, my buddy Jason Harvey that owns Top End, he was there, and he's like, "Turn the CO2 off." Well, I didn't, and it was on like 30 pounds. All right, and I got out there, and it was freaking ripping, bro. And it ended up chunking 2 rods. It caught on fire and everything. But that wasn't really the big deal. I mean, one of the rods, it kind of hit the head a little bit, but that could be fixed. But I burned through the intake and
fire slotted a little bit.
And that's, I mean, I can fix it.
Yeah, you got to grind out that crystallization that it kind of leaves behind, and then you could re-weld it. And
I was sad.
Yeah.
Because those heads are monsters. And I recently did that to the heads to the S2000, and that's why I went to a different fuel. I've been running race fuel 120, and I'm just so tired of burning things up. And I've never been a fan of E85 because there's so much maintenance involved in it. But Jonathan finally convinced me. He's like, "We're either putting it on meth or E85."
And the meth is great. The hard thing is the fuel, because you have to have the mechanical fuel pump to really keep up. And E85 is kind of in between, I think. I think you could build an electric fuel pump system that could keep up with the E85
and we got that. And we actually took it testing the other night. We split the fuel tank in half. It was so aggressive. There's, and let me tell you about that. Let's just jump on that for a minute, this S2000. So the engine in it right now was never supposed to go in it. All right. The numbers don't match up with this engine. The story behind that is back when that big, huge flood happened out in East Tennessee, Jonathan had built this engine for a shop that he does a lot of business for. And dude just said, "Hey, we're underwater. If you can sell it to somebody." So Jonathan mentioned it to me. I run 427s and the car's 388. And he said, it's good bottom end. It was a hydraulic cam in it. And he's like, "It'd make good for a backup motor if you're interested." And I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "You remember those heads you built for me like 4 years ago when you was over at Tick?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's the Brodex ones." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, they were set up for hydraulic. Let's just put them on there. But titanium valves, hoop, everything. So, I mean, the heads, I got as much as in the heads as he sold me the bottom end for. You know, so, and of course the numbers didn't match up. This was never supposed to do what it was supposed to do. So he puts this thing together, and, you know, we get back from World Cup. I found out I torched the heads just like I did the haymakers. And I'm like, man, let's go ahead and put that motor in there. All right. Because the other motor had aluminum rods in it. And of course, the idea of building the Cadillac is the new Outlaw car. We wanted to turn the S2000 back to a street car. I went to some race, and they disqualified me for not meeting the spirit of the race because it was a race car. And I was like, this is a race. But anyways, they said it needs to be more of a street car. You need to have a stock front end on it. Of course, I had a one-piece clip on it, plastic windows. So Josh made a whole front end for this thing, working hood, all stock stuff. He made a dash for it. We put glass roll-up windows in it, radio in it, everything. Well, by doing this, I told him, and we've never had this. I was like, I need the turbos to breathe. So I need you to design a headlight with scoops in it. So he did. All right. Well, intake temps have plummeted. Like, I'm talking 60 to 70 degrees before and after. I mean, this whole thing has changed. We add some more weight to the front of the car. Jonathan wanted on a different fuel. He wanted on E85. So we went testing in it. We saw that it was making tons of progress. We were running out of fuel. So we put huge injectors in it. And then we added a third pump underneath the car. So, yeah, it's got 3 Holley brushless pumps on it. I mean, I've got more than I could fuel a rocket. So anyways, we get all this done, and we went testing the other day, and the track was junk. I'm so excited to get on a track where this thing will actually stay on the ground, and a track that'll hold the car. We went, well, first off, before we added the fuel system, the new fuel system, we took this setup to Clarksville, and it went 118 60 foot on 5.9 pounds of boost. It's never went that fast on such low boost. Like, it's making power so efficiently. All right. And then we didn't even have it turned up. It was on like 25 pounds at the back door and went a triple nickel in the 8th. And I let out before I even went through the beams. You know, so I'm like, man, this is working. Let's add more fuel. Let's do this. So we went to go test, and they said that they prepped this track. They didn't prep the track. So I had it on 10 pounds to launch. It blew the tire, all right, extremely hard. And then it made it went 60 foot. And then I pedaled it. It hooked up, and I just gunned it. And it went 139 miles an hour in 8 after doing all that goofy stuff. It would have went over 150. All right. This thing was moving, and we only had it at 32 pounds.
And for those that don't know, you mentioned earlier it was a TH400. It's not a TH400.
No, it's a stick shift car.
Yeah, it's pro shifted.
So it's H pattern.
Yep, H pattern.
H pattern stick shift with a pedal. I mean, it is, the only difference is it's face plated. So you could go to third to second really quick. So you got to pay attention to what you're doing. And other than that, it's got a specific clutch in it called a slipper clutch, which is different than a diaphragm. And it just makes it where I don't have to preload the car when I'm leaving. All right. So you're less likely to break stuff, but it's a little bit more complicated because you got to know how to measure weights and everything else.
We're talking to, I have 3 stick shift guys in a row, Matt, Jonathan, you, and everybody's running slipper clutches. So it's kind of neat learning about them because I have not built anything with them. I've got people that would if they just have to maintenance them at the track and stuff. It's just so easy. And I was telling, I think, Matt this, it's just so easy to put a TH400 with a converter in some cars. It's too easy. You know? And then you just, drink your coffee down the track and let the air shifter do its thing.
One of the things that, and this is my whole biggest switch, of course, Jonathan, me and my dad, he's like, let's stick shift race. But anyways, because I used to have a bunch of automatics. And it got to a point for me where, of course, I'm ADHD as can be, and I was getting bored sitting in a car. But every time I'd pull up to the racetrack, what I would do is I'd stand at the end of the pits and I'd look and see who had the nicest trailer, the nicest RV. And I would say, that guy's going to win. And people would say, why do you say that? Because he's got the most money. Well, that don't mean anything. I was like, yes, it does. I was like, this is an automatic. You're letting go of a button. If we're in the same class, he's going to win. Especially if it's heads up racing, you know what I mean? He's going to win. That's all there is to it. The only chance you have at winning with an automatic car all right, taking the money equation out of it, is if you're a bracket racer.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're a bracket racer, sure, anybody can win. All right. You got to be good on that tree. But if we're heads up racing, all right, and it's an automatic, look and see who's got the best car out, the best stacker and everything else. The chances are he's going to win because he's got the best money to buy the best parts.
Especially if he makes the habit of racing, because if if you go every week, 2 weeks, and you're just in that zone, and you have a dialed in car and you're dialed in, you're going to be, it's just going to be.
All right. But vice versa, you get into a stick car. I mean, let's just take the last big race, Texas 2K. All right. I've never seen this before. So there's a guy, and you know, I'm not downplaying him at all. All right. He showed up to the race. He did what he was supposed to do, and he won the race. But he himself said, I didn't deserve this. All right. He pulls up. He's got a Civic. He qualified dead last. All right. Dead last.
Yeah, he should have been gone. He shouldn't have made it to the finals.
Jonathan, number one qualifier. All right. The last qualifying run, he dropped the valve. Engine's gone. So dude pulls up to race Jonathan, gets a bye.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Miles Kerr. That's his second race. He pulls up against him. Miles breaks on the line.
Oh, man.
All right. So dude just drives down the track. All right. Third round, caught another bye. All right. And then for the finals, on that third round, the semifinals, Nick on the other side of the field was racing Devin Schultz. All right. Nick had no oil pressure. But you know Nick, he don't ever look. He's like, I'm not going to let Devin win. I'm sending this thing. And I was like, that's probably not a good idea. You know, you're losing oil pressure. He was like down to like 10 pounds at idle. It's like, that's probably not, and the wideband sensors went out in it, all kinds of problems. So he's on the laptop just turning everything off. Oil pressure alarm.
All of the safety.
He just turned all the safeties off. He changed the oil in it so he'd get a little bit better oil pressure and brought it to the line. I'm like, you are crazy. And not only did he just, it went 701 at 211 miles an hour. He full sent this thing. He won the semifinal round, right? And chunked the rods out of the block. As soon as it went to decel, boom, it just exploded. So guess what the guy in the Civic did? He got a bye in the finals. This dude didn't race anybody.
He didn't really race.
He raced and he qualified dead last, raced nobody, and won $10,000.
He should have went and bought a lottery ticket with some of his money.
But that's stick shift racing. You know, a couple years ago, Miles Kerr, at the same race, Texas 2K, on the field, you got heavy hitters out there. Atkins, Grannis, everybody else that's running in the sixes. You know, Miles, good friend of mine. We've been 750s in the car. And he stayed consistent and went 750s and won the thing. Other races, look at World Cup Nick won this year, but these races you go to stick shift race at, the deal is we're limited to how fast we're going. All right, because that thing that we're shifting, all right, it's only going to take so much. All right, and we've reached the longevity of where it's going to last. All right, so all of us are kind of in that we know which each other's going to run. All right, and we're all on keel to do that. All right, so what stick shift racing is who can last to the last round. Because if I pull up next to a hitter, I've got to send it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I've got to send it. You know, so I'm either going to blow up, he's going to blow up, maybe we'll both survive. Who knows? At the end of and there's a lot of skill that goes involved driving with one hand, doing all these things. So at the end of the day, in stick shift racing, it's anybody's race.
Yeah, it sounds fun, actually.
Dude, it's a blast.
It sounds a lot of fun. Do you ever consider doing any of like the drag and drive stuff?
I have. I just don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. It does take a lot of time.
Yeah,
and they're like a week long.
Yeah.
Plus getting there and back. So you probably a week and a half, really. Yeah. And so it does eat up a lot of time.
All this. It's hard for me to move away. And I wouldn't necessarily say I micromanage things. Like Matt, my manager, one of the most loyal guys in the world. At night, he takes his work home with him. He does invoicing overnight. Estimates, everything that he's not able to get done here at the shop. If we're going racing, he's going racing with me. The toolbox for our race trailer is his and everything in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't say, hey, let me buy this toolbox. He's like, hey, I know what we need for this car. It's not even his car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's how loyal and dedicated he is.
Good.
And like I said, I don't micromanage him, but you know, I need to know every step of the way of what's going on. I take this business and my other businesses and everything I'm doing extremely serious. I want to have a great reputation.
Right.
And
so
I always want to keep that.
You're running 3 businesses.
Yes.
Yeah. So you still have your truck service, diesel, and reefer type business, t-shirt business.
Well,
or do you even call that a separate business?
So the t-shirt business is, we've just actually kind of moved it into Renegade Race Development.
Okay.
So anything that we're manufacturing for sale that has our name on it is just part of that company.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So we got that going on. We got this shop going on. I have the truck refrigeration business going on. And then I also buy rental houses. So I've got that going on. And then on top of all of this, so I've got those 4 things going on. Then I have to film regularly for YouTube. That's kind of a job in itself, because we got the Instagram and everything else. So, and it makes money.
Right.
So I guess it's a business too.
It technically is. And I spend, you know, for this, like the orchestration behind one video takes me about 2 days.
Yeah.
Production, filming, and then editing, and then uploading it. It's about 2 days of my week for one episode. And, you know, most of them are like 90 minutes long or so. It doesn't seem like it should be 2 days, but it is. So, I mean, running the YouTube channel, like, think of the guys that do it just as their only job.
And you know what?
7 day a week.
I admire it, especially just starting out. And I tell people a lot this, and of course, Kyle told me the same thing too. He's like, hey, you know, unless you do something that just takes America by storm and you blow up overnight, he's like, that's a 1% chance.
Oh, yeah.
He said, even if, he said it might have been 1%, like 0.5. All right. So the rest of us, we have to build it.
Yeah.
And he said, the reason why YouTube, you don't see everybody, oh, I'm going to go do YouTube. He said, they'll say that.
Yeah.
And then 6 months in, you know, everybody wants that gratification. It doesn't happen right away.
No.
So putting in all this effort that you're doing, the 2 days a week, editing and everything else to get to where you want to be, that's dedication. I admire the shit out of it.
Yeah. And I don't go after, I don't want to be the guy buying the helicopters or showing up to the races like that. I just want to share my knowledge. You know, starting with the books, that was the start of my media.
And look where I'm at.
Yeah. And we're both doing this stuff, and you have your YouTube stuff and shop and 2 other businesses. But, you know, this is a way to get more knowledge out there, because, you know, nowadays I think kids have it a little bit harder, because do you know any 18-year-olds that would pick up a book and read it? No. So I think the YouTube stuff, the social media stuff is where you have to share that car knowledge out, and hope they take the grasp of it and take that free knowledge, really.
Exactly.
Because what my plan is to go through, and I started doing this, is go through my engine book and just go through front to rear and transcribe it into, basically take each chapter and make it into like a video. And I've started doing that. It's a lot of work, but I think it will help more people out doing that kind of stuff.
And I do a lot of that things too with my YouTube channel. So my YouTube channel is kind of all over the place. It's us racing. It's things here in the shop. And then I also do like how-to videos on there.
Yeah.
I should probably separate everything and make a bunch of different ones, but I just throw it all together.
Yeah, throw it all together.
But the what I find interesting is if I find something that's interesting to me, all right, and I know you've been there, you're working on something and you're just slapping yourself in the head. Like, what is going on with this thing? And then you figure it out and you're like, oh man, that's interesting.
Right.
All right, because you figured it out, you know what I mean? And it's probably something that 9 times out of 10, it's going to take somebody else hours to figure out. So then you're like, all right, let me start all over and make a video on this.
Yeah, it gives somebody the cheat code.
Yeah, it's the cheat code. So I can share this. And that's what I do. Is and then, of course, questions like where I'm getting asked these same questions over and over again. I think one of my best video on YouTube is resetting GM theft deterrent systems.
Oh.
Literally, I made a video on that, and it is viewed 3,000 or 4,000
like
times.
The 10 minutes on, 1 minute off, 10 minutes on. Just that's simple.
That's simple. But I've been asked that question so many times because where I have to deal with it a lot is one of my contracts on the truck refrigeration part outside is we work for U-Haul International. All right, and they got a bunch of GM products, and this happens quite a bit. All right, and then as I've hired technicians through the years, this is something that I have to explain
to everybody.
All right. And I'm just like, let's make a video on this. Yeah. So I actually made the video working on a U-Haul. All right. And dude, best video I've ever made.
Yeah.
And that's just me sitting there with an iPhone talking about
And that's a good point. I saw this in like one of the coaching classes that I had taken online is they onboard employees all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Every time you hire somebody, you're onboarding them. And it takes, 2-3 months for somebody to get up to speed. But instead of repeating the same thing every, 4 to 6 weeks for every new hire, they started recording them. And then they made just a watch list of, hey, you have to watch all of this stuff. Don't watch it at work. Maybe watch it on your lunch break or something. But it helps to onboard stuff. The same stuff you're repeating all the time. And it's kind of reminded me of, your theft deterrent relearn. I probably watched that video myself.
Hey, look, I mean, it's 2,000 to 3,000 views a week.
Wow.
All right, for the last 3 years on that video. And it's nonstop.
Yeah, I have one like that is degreeing a cam and push rod length. And it gets more views than anything.
Yeah.
It just
the push rod link's a good idea. Because I have so many people that ask me that. Like, because there's a lot of people, and I let people do their own thing. Yeah. There's a lot of people that come in here and they're like, hey, I built an engine, I stuck it in my car, and it don't run. I'm like, cool. So they bring it here, and then I got to figure out things. And a lot of you'd be surprised how many times I took a valve cover off. And I'm like, oh yeah, what kind of heads you got? Oh, I put some trick flows on it. And what kind of cam's in it? Oh, I put this BTR cam in it. And then I pull the push rod out, and it's a stock one.
Yeah. A lot of people mix and match stuff, and I get it. You want to kind of make your own kind of package that you picked up parts everywhere from, but really, like, most people should just buy proven packages because you can't reinvent the wheel at this point. With the LS game has already been well trodden. Like, there's some crazy power stuff that you could do that's new, but if you're with a Silverado with a 5.3 or GTO with a 6-liter, that stuff's been out forever. So you don't have to, mix and match as much as people do. So, and push rod length, to me, it just seems so easy because I've done it so many times. And the same thing, I got asked all the time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make this video, throw it out there and see what it gets. And I think it has like 15, 16, maybe 18,000 views now. And it's just, I had one of the sales guys just start recording me and asking me questions. Right. Because he didn't know how to do it. And I'm like, this is a perfect guy to film me. Yeah. Ask me what you want to know. I'll explain it on camera. Because I have a problem of like, who's watching this? Kind of the same deal as with the books. Who's reading this? And I have the same thing with the videos is I always assume people know what I know. Which is a bad thing to do.
Very bad.
So I always have to think of, if I'm trying to explain this to like my mother who knows nothing about cars, that's how I have to explain it. And so I try to get all of the key points in there because, if you're explaining it to a car guy, you probably overlook all kinds of stuff. Like, oh, you need an 8mm socket, you need, torque wrench, the common stuff that, you take it for granted that they should know. They should know.
And, my wife gets on to me like that all the time, because I get one of my pet peeves, I guess you could say, is just, I don't even know how to say this. Like, let's just say you come in here and you tell me you're a mechanic. Yeah. And this and that. And then something that I would think is common sense. Yeah. And they don't know. And I'm just like, the hell? I thought you was a technician. You know what I mean? She's like, not everyone thinks like you and not everyone's as smart as you. So you got to understand that. And you got to try not to be an asshole.
Yeah. And I think, I don't want to say that I've made that mistake like that, but like it's easy to do though. It's easy to think that everybody just knows what you know, because you get on the phone, somebody asks you a technical question, and I'll say like some word like, what's the preload of your lifters? And they're like, what's preload? And then you have to really dumb it down to really walk them through the steps. And that's kind of what started that whole video, was getting so many of those phone calls. And to explain car stuff to non-car people is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Very hard.
Yeah. So the Cadillac's coming up when you have some free time. Yeah. That's 2000.
Dude, it's something cool that we're about to do today. We've got this big, huge diff right here. Yep. This is actually one of my competitors. All right. Yeah. In racing. All right. And everybody knows who he is, Joel Granis. And we're actually really good friends, though. All right. And this is one of this class of racing that I have noticed. We're all really good friends. We have our little heated discussions and battles, and we do our little shit talking and all that stuff. But dude, there's only so many of us in this area of outlaw stick, all right? Because we're all extremely fast and competitive. But we all help each other.
Right.
All right.
You're friends.
And Joel has helped me so much. And I mean, he'll even tell you this. He supplied me with everything. I'm from wastegates. My first big stick shift race, we went to lights out and I had all kinds of problems, breaking axles and all kinds of stuff. He overnighted me everything. All right. New wastegate change, axles, rear end setup, everything. We changed all this, went to that race, and I beat him first round. And
with his stuff.
Yeah, with his stuff. And he even made a post about it. He's like, hey, you supply the competition with this, yada, yada, yada. So proud of him. He took me out right away. So, I mean, we're so close and so cool, but he's been doing a lot of innovative things too. And just a lot of the things that I'm doing, you know, as well, like he's wanting to make things better for the racer. One of the biggest things in 8.8 rear ends is the cases break. Yeah. All right. Case failure. All right. I mean, the stuff that's inside of it, I mean, you got a spool and all this stuff. I mean, you got good parts on the inside, but
it was not meant to do what we're doing with it.
Exactly. So I'm running a Thunderbird case right now. But if you're running like an aluminum case diff, all right, something that you'd see in a Mustang, you're going to break it. Yeah. Okay. That's all there is to it.
You're running a IRS 8.8. Yep. And then like G-force axles or something.
Well, they're made by Drive Shaft Shop.
Drive Shaft Shop. Yeah.
So they make those. But anyways, he's been reinventing the wheel, and this is his case. So he forged his own case, and then the rear cover on it, he designed that specifically for different applications. Like I'm sure he can use it in Supras or whatever else, but this one he designed a plate where I could mount it, all right, inside the S2000 by the rear cover. The cool things about this are is I wrecked my car once upon a time. I wrecked it because I didn't want to let out. All right. But the reason why I wrecked it is I broke a bolt, all right, that holds the case. Okay. All right. So you know you're familiar with torque steel. So when I got on it, the case moved and it kept pushing me right. Yeah. But instead of being the wise person, I was in the finals. Yeah. I was racing for #1 spot and I just kept trying to fight the car and I ended up going to the marbles on the wall.
And IRS cars have a tendency to steer the car anyway because, you know, the slightest deflection and the rear tires become steer tires. Yeah, yeah. And it is a lot more challenging than a solid axle car. I didn't know you had an IRS in that car. So that's
I refuse to change it. I refuse to change it. I love the challenge. And he designed all of this. So we're going to put it in the car and I'm the test dummy for it. Yeah. You know, but looking at it, I didn't know. I mean, look at the meat on that rear case.
That thing looked pretty impressive.
That thing is thick.
I think I saw the photo he posted of it earlier in the week.
That doesn't do justice.
Yeah.
All right. That thing is retarded. So it's going in the car. We're going to get that in there before we go testing. And that's one of the biggest things, you know, when you're developing a product, you want to know that it's going to work. Right. And one thing that Joel knows about me is I'm going to send this thing to the moon. So if it's going to break, it's going to be me that breaks it. You know what I mean?
That's pretty neat. I like that. That's a good idea to have. Yeah. And hopefully he expands it to other platforms too. Because that's definitely needed for the IRS guys.
And that's one of the things that he keeps doing. And I'm so appreciative of it. And I know other people are too. And the God's honest truth, this application, like this rear plate for the S2000, how many is he going to sell? How many S2000s are still left on the market? Yeah. How many people are trying to do what we're doing? You know what I mean? So not a huge market for that. Right. You know what I mean? But he's still designing it and still doing this thing. And that's so awesome.
I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, he could make that for 5th gen Camaros, 6th gen Camaros.
Yeah, the whole case V8s is universal for everything. But the bracketry for the different cars out there,
that's all
that is what's, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. I think that's a good idea to make. And, you know, it definitely fills, I don't want to say a hole in the market, but a hole for the racers that are racing with them. Because, you don't want to be limited by your differential. That's the worst thing to be limited by, because everything else you could upgrade. Exactly. If you're stuck with the Thunderbird case, I know, and that's it.
That's it.
That limits you so much. Yeah. That's pretty neat. So the Civic's a drift car. Yeah. The S2000's your main drag car currently.
Yeah, that's my baby.
Yeah.
I love that car.
I'm going to put some photos up during this video of those cars. Anything else on the horizon? Just after the business is kind of more comfortable other than the V?
Yeah, you know, my wife's racing, and matter of fact, Nick Coleman, all right, fastest stick shift guy in the world, he's got her car right now. So she's got a stick S550 Mustang.
Okay.
And, you know, we LS swapped it.
Yeah.
So it no longer has a Coyote in it, but it's got a fully built 376 in it. It's got a TR 6060 in it. And it had a set of twins on it. One of them was burned up, and while she was learning how to race, she shifted to second, blew the tire, and hit the wall.
Oh.
All right, so it kind of tweaked the front end, and we got it to work where she could go racing in Wisconsin, and she broke some things up there. I mean, she full sent it and ended up breaking the drive shaft.
So the Mustang did Mustang things and tried to aim itself at a crowd behind the wall.
Yeah. So he's cut the whole front end off of it, and he's doing some work on it, and he put a 98 millimeter single on it, and doing some other trick things with it. So we should be getting it back soon for her. And I think that's going to be one of my bigger focuses this year is because I with the growing of the company, I don't have a lot of time to focus on racing right now. And I'll probably do a bunch of local things. Of course, we'll do LS Fest in Bowling Green.
That's, what, an hour away?
Yeah.
So
I'll do World Cup.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll do World Cup. And the cool thing about World Cup, and you know you have to qualify before you can even go, but the S2000 is pre-qualified.
Yep.
It's already been.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So I can go to that. So I'll probably end up doing that. And what we're probably going to do is shut the entire shop down. Bring everybody with us.
Yeah.
Just because that's a once-in-a-lifetime event.
I think that's a good thing. And you get to, when you're back in the shop and you're always working, you don't get to kind of reap the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
And when you go to the races, you get to do that. And you get to see what you do.
Dude, that's one of the biggest things that if I could share this with any other shop owners or business owners or anything of that nature is, you know, the loyalty that I get out of my guys, you know, is second to none. You know, and I've been in other places where you see people working and it's just a job.
Oh, yeah. It's a job, and somebody's ready to stab you in the back at any moment.
At any moment. And that doesn't really go on here.
No.
You know, every once in a while we'll get a bad apple or something of that nature. You got to hire 10 before you find one good one. But the people that are here, I like, dude, if we're going racing, if the company's making money, we're all going to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we're investing our money back into the company to continue to grow it. But if we're going to go racing, we're going to shut this bastard down. We're going to rent us an Airbnb, and we're all going to have the time.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these guys, after hours, work on that race car more than I do. And we go to the racetrack, and they tell me to get out of my own trailer. All right? Your job is to just be famous and drive the car. Get out of the track. And look, we were at LS Fest, and I almost wrecked the car. We launched it extremely hard, and the rear end shifted in it. And when I was going down the track, it kept wanting to go into the wall. And I had to fight the car. I did win the round, thankfully. But I got out of the car when I came back. I said, guys, I'm not getting back in this car. And that was, luckily enough, that was the last round of the night. But I said, I'm not racing this car tomorrow if it's not going to go straight. I said, I almost crashed. So that was around 7 o'clock that evening. They finished that car at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Wow, that's some dedication.
Dude, they were pushing it through the pits, you know, with the smart car, like with somebody's foot, and then they had let it coast and let go of the steering wheel. And they kept adjusting and jacking up and adjust. It took them till 3 a.m. in the morning to get it right. And I came out there the next morning, and I had an event, after party event that I had to attend to with the Civic. As a matter of fact, we did a burnout competition. But anyways, I the next morning I asked them, I was like, hey, is it going to go straight? And all of them, you could see them sitting there, monsters in hand, eyes barely open, and making jokes talking about, we're going to find out. You know, and I'm like, well, that's not reassuring. You know what I mean? And I got in that car, and, you know, I trust these guys with my heart. I got in that car, and I sent it straight as an arrow. You know, I couldn't ask for a better team. And like I said, whenever we do these events together, you know, I'm taking care of them. All expenses are paid, and their whole paycheck for the week is paid. We're going racing, and you're still getting your paycheck.
And that doesn't happen a whole lot in this world. Usually it's a volunteer basis when it's at the races. And that's a good thing because you want to engage those people. You don't want to cause disarray amongst your staff. And the other thing is you're spending a significant part of the work week with your team.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to make sure everybody's happy because you've been to places where, there's that one bad apple and he makes everybody's day bad. When it was his bad day, now everybody's has a bad day. So you don't want that. And if you could have a really good team like that and everybody lifts each other up, that's the best case.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty awesome.
We listen to the guys, like if they have suggestions in the workplace, let's hear them.
Yeah, so something that, kind of popped up in my head when we were talking about, he's your competitor, but he's here helping you. He's sent you parts. He's sending you parts to test. He's giving you parts to race on. In this world, it's a very small community. You don't really want to burn bridges. And I know you've had your experiences of that, which we won't even get into, but that's something to leave this conversation with. Don't burn bridges in this world because you never know when you're going to have to rely on that person that you may have caused a problem with.
Exactly. And even in that situation that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I've done my part to make amends, and I believe he has too.
Yeah.
I
think so.
In that situation, we understand why it happened.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, he doesn't necessarily want to admit that, but we understand why it happened. But at the end of the day, I'm the type of person I'm gonna forgive people. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hold that grudge. I'm going to forgive people. I was wrong in a lot of things that I did involved with it because I attacked him.
Yeah.
All right. So, in the end, we started working together. You know what I mean? We were getting ready for World Cup, as a matter of fact. And one of my competitors that I race against, he had shattered some pistons or something. And I happened to be going to Cincinnati for work. And, I called him in the middle of the night and said, I need some parts.
Yeah.
And he went out there and put them in the bed of his truck. You know what I mean? So, we've made amends.
I think he's one of us still. Yeah. I think business and, getting stuff, in his case, he's had stuff copied his whole career. And, I think it puts you on edge a little bit. Yep. And I think you're always waiting for the next guy to kind of hurt you. Yeah. And I think that is what probably triggered that. And I'm friends with him. I'm going to do a podcast with him too.
Absolutely.
At some point. I've worked there. So, I know the guys. And I think it turned out really good.
Oh, yeah.
So
in the end, I think it turned out really good. So I'm, if I was to see him right now, I'd walk up and give him a hug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and that's the thing is, like I said, this business is small. This whole business of performance is very small and tight knit. And, you want to, because you might need somebody that is a connection or a network connection. And, if word gets out that, hey, this guy did this or this guy did that, sometimes people will black flag you because you hurt a buddy, right? Yeah. And so, everybody kind of needs each other. And there's going to be a time where, there might be somebody you don't even think of, but because you were nice to that guy 10 years ago, he's going to remember that. And you call it a favor and he's going to be like, oh, yeah, man, I'll drive something over to you right now.
In some ways, I'm glad that situation happened.
Yeah.
All right. And a lot of people would say, why would you be glad about that? And the deal is I was humbled in that situation because I'm sure from the aftermath of it from people writing their feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it really humbled me to know that a lot of people, you're talking about big names in this industry, felt the way that they felt about it. And that really humbled me. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad it did happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
it sucks that it happened.
It does, but it's done and over with. Yeah. It's disappeared from the internet, other than probably a couple thousand screenshots. but everything's mended. It's water under the bridge. The hatchet is buried. All of that stuff. All of the good stuff. So that's good. And do you do any of their parts?
Yeah, absolutely. I've still yet to become a dealer for them, and I want to do that. And that's a conversation that I got to have with him.
I don't think that'll be a problem. I think that'll be pretty easy to set up. In fact, a lot of places, it's kind of like how you are. You said you're busy. A lot of people are busy in their day to day. And sometimes, like I'll ask, I could get an account almost anywhere just by picking up the phone and calling my buddies everywhere. And sometimes, like if you call Matt's so busy with R&D Like, he wants to help you, but he's so busy with doing his stuff. He's like, just talk to Eli or talk to somebody at the shop.
Here's the thing that I use, Matt. All right. And I know this sounds kind of bad. But like recently we needed a slave.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I was talking to JD. They're like, we're backward like 4 or 5 weeks. Man, I ain't gonna do it. I need this slave now.
Yeah.
So I called Matt and I was like, hey, I need this now. And he took care of it.
Yeah.
And I had it within 3 days. Okay. And another thing too, and I mean, we got a really good review on from a guy, and he had called. I think it was a billet front plate or something. I don't remember what part it was, but it was from Tick. And he had called Tick, and it was on backward. All right, they said like 4 or 5 weeks. His car was at a shop sitting in the air, yada yada yada. And then I called Matt, and I said, "Hey, I got a customer that called you. He's called me directly, and I said I'd see what I can do. I don't have one here. What can you do?" And he said, "Yeah, we'll make it happen."
Yeah.
So he went out there in the shop and set up a machine and made it right then and there.
He probably did it at like 11 p.m. or something like that.
And you know how many times we were getting ready for a race, and I called Matt. It was a Saturday. I was standing here in the shop. It was around noon. And I called Matt, and I was like, "Hey, bro, I screwed up." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "I need this size bearing for a slave, or I can't go racing." And he was on the road with Tia going somewhere. And he asked her, he's like, "Hey, Tom's this, and that." And she's like, "Yeah, we can do it." And I was like, "I'm getting in the car, and I'm driving." It's 9 hours to his shop, right? I jumped in the car and took off. All right, I made it there about 9 o'clock at night, and Tia was in there watching TV, and he went in there and fired up a machine, all right, on a Saturday and made the part.
Yeah.
He's an awesome person.
He is. And, when you keep on building this network up, and you're in the same place I am as far as reaching out to people, you can call people on a Saturday or a Sunday and just small talk with them.
Yeah. Like
it's not just Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. They're part of your network. They're part of your friend list. And I consider everybody in my network, my work network, my friends. And it's helped me out a lot.
He's
because
a really
I can call up anybody. Like, I could be in almost any town there's a speed shop in the country. Call up whoever I know in that town and meet them at any time almost for a beer, which is pretty neat. Can you do that in any other industry?
No.
It's pretty crazy how much the automotive performance world is, and you could do that in this world. It's just to take a step back and think about that is wild.
And you know what? I wouldn't trade this for anything. I absolutely love this industry. I love the people in it. And like I said, there's ups and downs. There's fights everywhere. But this industry for the most part is it's better than anything else.
Yeah.
At least I feel that way.
I think so too. And work is work, right? There's always going to be a bad day at work, but as long as your good days outweigh your bad days, you're winning.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of places that every day is a bad day. It's not that way in the performance world.
100%.
Well, Tom, thank you for welcoming me into your world and seeing the new shop. I know you're busy, and thanks for taking the time out, because this is a great conversation to have.
Absolutely.
I think next time we're back through, we'll sit down, maybe have a revisit, see what's new in the shop, what new products Renegade has. Renegade R&D.
Renegade Race Development.
Race Development.
Yeah.
RRD.
Yeah, RRD. And then our slogan is question the status quo.
Yeah.
So figure out how to make it better.
Then YouTube is Stick Shift Racing. That's easy.
Yep.
What's the website for the business?
ShopRenegade.com.
ShopRenegade.com. Nice. And then it's Stick Shift Racing on pretty much everything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. Or just put in Thomas West. You're going to
you'll find the stuff. Well, thanks everybody for listening to the HPCult podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Tom, for
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
Whew. Thank you for tuning in to the High Performance Cult podcast. A huge thanks to our guests for welcoming us into their world and sharing their insights. I also want to express my gratitude to my colleagues who helped make this show possible. For more from High Performance Cult, join our growing community at hpcult.com. Our network is a vibrant hub for media and forums, connecting enthusiasts like you with peers who share your passion. Share your vehicles, projects, and experiences, and stay updated with upcoming articles and media. If you're new here and enjoyed the podcasts, please like, subscribe, and share. We can't wait to see you next time on the High Performance Cult podcast.